Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Legacy Leaders. This morning, yours truly, Scott McMeans, is joined by Chrissy Montera of Miss C-Suite Consulting. Interesting backstory. Let's get into it. As soon as I turn the microphone and camera over to her, Chrissy is going to give you her story. But I want her to tell us what she does, how she does it, and what makes it so amazing to work with her. So, without further ado, Chrissy, the microphone and camera are yours.
Hi, Scott. Thanks so much for having me today.
My pleasure.
Excited to be here. Um, it's a lot to tell everyone, so let's see if when you give me the mic, what I got to say. Um, I'm Chrissy, like you said. I am a consultant for brand marketing, and I actually got started about a year ago. So I'm early in my consultancy, but I lost my job in the fall of last year. I don't think that's a unique story these days, unfortunately. I had been in the corporate world for almost 2 decades, and I had a pretty broad scope in corporate. I was leading brand strategy, social media, PR, influencer, a pretty broad swath of expertise. And as I got out into the job market, everything was so niche down. Um,
Hmm.
and I started finding it really challenging to kind of pick a lane. Maybe that's the Libra in me. Um, but I just felt like strategy is such a foundational structure to how you do what you do. And picking a lane felt really foreign to me.
Okay.
Uh, And so I thought, why not just give it a whirl and bet on myself a little bit? And so I entered the consulting world, doing some white label, some fractional, some freelance work here and there. But, I really found that I was able to flex all that scope in a really unique way because every client has a different need.
Hmm.
And so I didn't have to pick a lane because every client had a little bit of a different want, desire, and problem to solve. But it all started with strategy. And so after about 2 decades in corporate, I said, okay, I'm going to give this a whirl. And I'm about a year in, like I said. And I'm finding that, from small brands to big brands, everyone sort of has the same problems. And they
Hmm.
all start with what's your story and what's your strategy, whether they know it or not. And so that has been sort of the core of what I do. And I've been really lucky to get to work with some really fun brands, get to reconnect with some old co-workers who are also consulting and running their own agencies now. And so it's been a fun journey. I won't say it's been like easy, but it's definitely been fun.
Well, it's amazing because you and I share a little bit of the same backstory, which is, been in corporate world a couple decades, done a lot of work in the corporate environment, and before you know it, like you think you're in this most amazing, secure environment because there's thousands of employees. It's a multi-billion dollar company. We're doing great work, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, all right, well, there's an acquisition, and we're going to strip down different divisions, and we're going to do without any really forewarning, like, oh my God, I got to change real quick. And what do? Right. And
Absolutely.
I like your story in that you didn't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. You simply decided, I know so much about so many different things. Why don't I apply that to people that have a need? And because their need is not necessarily unique, it might be unique to them in their market, but the need isn't unique in that I can help them with the motivation for their company, right? The strategy, the things behind the wall that nobody really gets a chance to see. And when you and I were originally talking, I said, all businesses, no matter how big or small, deal with the same four problems, right?
Yeah.
And it's time, money, people, or motivation. And you've discovered this little, it's not a niche, but this environment where motivation and strategy is the biggest challenge that everybody's dealing with. So how do we fit that into
Yeah.
a systematic approach to help them? And with your background, you're able to really help people out because been there, done that. I know what I'm doing. I've done this for so many different companies before, but now let me apply it to you. Let me ask you, because I'm interested to hear this. When you're trying to apply what you know to
Yeah.
somebody that doesn't know it and doesn't
Mhm.
understand your background, how do you overcome that interaction or that stalemate of, well, that's not how we do things. We've always done it this way. And all of a sudden you're coming in to say, I just try it this way. So
Yeah.
how do you overcome that?
It's really interesting because that's not a unique problem to dealing with like smaller businesses that
Yeah.
oftentimes happen in corporate a lot too. And there's no secret to why my name is Miss C-Suite. I come from a corporate background. And so, the idea that I'm applying very corporate principles to
Hmm.
a very broad range of clients, is, sort of the magic behind what I'm doing. Um, I am not a person who believes in, you might think this is actually counter to spending almost 20 years in the corporate environment in the same company. Like I thought I was going to get the gold watch, the whole thing. But I'm not a big believer in we've always done it that way, regardless. So when I encounter somebody who is feeling like we've always done it this way, I think it's all about relationships and building
Hmm.
that relationship, that you can say, okay, I hear you. Like that's how you've done it. And is that working? Because you've called me, right? And so, I do think maybe my copywriting background taught me this, but like options are really an important element in how I do my work.
Yep.
And so sometimes you have to serve them the option that they ask for, right? And
Yep.
say, if we do it this way, this is what you can expect to achieve. These are the types of outcomes. These are the types of things you're going to continue to do. What if we tried it this way? I'm famous for saying what if we. So I love a what if we. Um, and kind of bring them along on the journey. Because I think if you just serve up an option to someone and you say,
Hmm.
what if we, and they're already resistant, you're never going to get anywhere. I had a client earlier in the spring who was at a point where they were really heritage brand and a heritage luxury brand. And they were really trying to find the identity of, okay, how are we going to tell our brand story in a world that is now very socially oriented? It's just different and has
Yeah.
a lot more competition. And I think the noise is something that everyone's experiencing in the industry because there's just so much competition everywhere. Um, and where we started was one thought process. It was let's think about, who you are and what you do through the founder lens, because that's sort of where you've been, but we want to refresh it. And so it was just meant to be
Hmm.
sort of like, let's refresh it. And where we actually ended was somewhere completely different. And where that was born from was I listened to them. We did some discovery together. I let them tell me their story, and I
Hmm.
heard their story directly. And then I said, okay, here's if we play it this way, here's if we play it this way, and here's if we play it this way. And I brought them three options. And, I had a real strategic rationale for why three options. The first option, still, I was very proud of my work in helping them refresh what they were trying to do. Um, and it could help them achieve what their original goal was. Let's just refresh. But the other options help them push things that could either help them get further past the competition or
Hmm.
give them such a unique perspective that like no one else could do it. And so it really helped them go, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I think that that's the job that I try to do is not try to push them in a direction they
Hmm.
don't want to go because they've always done it that way, but help them see that there are other options that they hadn't even thought of. And that
Yeah.
we've already built trust in a relationship, so they know I'm not going to like, make them uncomfortable just for the sake of being uncomfortable. And we actually went with one of the other options. We didn't go with the brand refresh, which was great. And it gave them a new, unique perspective that's really going to help give them differentiation and uniqueness, which is what they needed.
That's what every brand's looking for, right? Every brand
Exactly.
wants to be unique.
Exactly.
What I like what you said there, it's something that I would mirror. We say this a lot. What got you here isn't
Mm,
going to get you there. So no matter
yes.
how good you think
Yes.
you're doing,
Completely.
right? You can't get to the next level. And I like the idea of a refresh, push you to the next level. Let's see what we can do that'd be different. But what if, I like that. What if we? Change things up and got to the next level, which would be something brand new and unique. What if we did something completely different? And that's a different comfort level for somebody, right? They may not be ready for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's all born out of like you've got to have that relationship trust. And even if it's
Yeah.
small, like discovery sounds really arduous. Like
Yeah.
when you tell someone, let's do discovery, it's like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? What's this going to look like? And it's actually something I've had a client where I was doing more brand strategy, brand story work. I've had clients where I'm doing more social work, but I'm always doing discovery, and that can be an hour where we're just like,
Mhm.
I'm asking questions and I'm trying to get at like, who do you like? Why do you like them? What do you think about this? Why do you think what's working today is working? Why don't you think what's working today is working? And I just like ask them questions. It's like maybe it's my Barbara Walter special.
No, I
But,
love it.
you know, it's about just getting to the core of if you ask someone what's your problem and how can I fix it, they don't know. And that's okay
Yeah.
because that's why they've called you, right? And so you've got to get at things that help them get to the problem without just trying to ask it and get it out on the table and
Yeah.
like look at it together and go, okay, this isn't a scary monster under the bed. Like we get what the problem is. Now let's fix it together. And I'm not here to ruffle your feathers. I'm here to put a feather in your cap.
I love that. That's actually a really good one because there's so many different ways. Really what we're doing with these individual companies that you work with, at least I'm assuming, because I do the same thing, right? The first phase is the discovery phase, and that's the historical era. Like, let's go back and figure out what went
Yeah.
wrong or what's going on and all that. The next is questioning, right? And that's the discomfort era. Like, oh God, nobody likes to be questioned. Why are you doing this? What is it that
Yep.
you're asking me? Oh my God, you asked me this question. Does that mean I'm wrong? No, we're just discovering, right? Or
Right.
we're just asking questions. We're trying to figure things out. And then it's the strategy, which is the expansion era. And then when you get into, all right, let's actually execute this. This is the growth era. Like this is when you get a
Yeah.
chance to actually do stuff, right? And I love the transition that people make from this, not cowering in the fetal position in the corner, right? It's not that, but
Yeah.
it's please don't come in here. Don't look beyond
Yeah.
don't look beyond the facade. Just leave me alone. But I want help, but don't come inside this door because
Yeah.
there's so much
Yeah.
behind this wall. But once you get in there and you start, all right, here's your historical value. We get it. This is what you've done. This is what made you successful. All right, let's start asking questions as far as what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
How do you think you're going to get there? What are your core values? What's your vision and mission? Like, what is it exactly that you're trying to achieve with your brand? And then, all right, now that we know what you want to do, what are the options? And I love the idea that you bring up three different options for your clients to take a look at because now you're not telling them what to do. You're suggesting three options and then discussing each one. So now it's
Yeah.
more of a collaboration. And
Yeah.
Chrissy, what you said before is the relationship is built on trust. And if you only brought, hey, one thing that we're really proud of, this is what we want you to do. Well, now
Yeah.
that's kind of, I know I paid you to do this, but God, I felt like I didn't even have a say in this,
Yeah.
right? But when you
Yep.
do the work and you kind of say, well, here's three different ways to do this, and one is just beyond your comfort zone, one is expanding your comfort zone, and the other one is let's build a brand new comfort zone, and I think you'll be really happy there, but we got to get there. And
Yeah.
and then you can really measure the weight of the burden that this company has to have to make those three changes, which one you're most
Absolutely.
comfortable with, and then you move
Yeah.
forward with it, right?
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
it.
And I think it's interesting because a lot of times it's it one enables them to make the decision ultimately. To your
Right.
point, I'm not just going here, you get what you get, don't throw a fit. It's like I'm not just bringing one, option to the table. And I think that enables, again, a bridge to trust that doesn't exist when you just come with like, well, this is what I think and this is what you should do. And it helps you co-create together in a way
Mhm.
because I might have brought three options and you really like actually two of them and you're not really sure how that could fit together and why, but there's this you like about the. And
Yeah.
so it really doesn't allow the collaboration because again, you've built a relationship of trust and you can say, this one actually, you're right, maybe doesn't get us where we want to go, but this helps us really think about something completely differently that scratches the itch and addresses the problem we were trying to address.
Yeah.
And I never even knew that was possible. So, I think that power possibility is really important.
Well, because I like the idea of the power possibility, like you just said, but the opportunity to have an open discussion about choice, right? I've given
Yeah.
you three, right? And let's walk through which one is going to do the what and how is it going to make you feel. Because at the end of the day, you want your client to feel as if they were a part of the process, they were part of
Absolutely.
the integration, they were part of the discovery, they were part of the entire thing. So when they come to the table, they're so into it, like, yes, that's what I want to do. And then I just want to throw something in there. I love Simon Sinek because he makes such great sense about a lot of different things. And one thing that he said was there's the power of choice, right?
Mm.
And he pushes this idea of the story of the most successful shoe salesman of all time. I've never heard this story, but it goes down to the idea of choice. So somebody will come in to buy a pair of shoes and they say, I'd like to see that in a size five, whatever, size four, whatever. And he says, okay, is there another pair of shoes that you have your eye on that you'd like to see? Since I'm going back, I might as well bring out two. And they always
Mhm.
inevitably pick another one. So he goes and gets the both shoes and he brings them out. And they like one over the other. And he asked them to say, which shoe do you like better? And now that, okay, I've taken this one away. Which other shoe do you like? Because I'm going to take this back. I might as well bring another shoe out. Which one do you like better? And what he discovered was they inevitably always pick one shoe, and more than half the time they buy another pair of shoes. Okay.
Interesting.
And it's because you're giving people that choice. And I'm not saying that you can get people to buy two different strategy campaigns. That's not it. But the
Yeah.
idea behind it is you give people choice and you ask them to make a choice of these three. Chrissy, which one do you like better or the most? Okay. Or which one do you like the least? We get rid of that one. Now it's between these two. Now let's really dive into how you want to do these two and which one most aligns to you. That way they're collaborative. They're involved in the process, right? As opposed to, well, you tell us, we paid you to do it. Tell us,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And I'm not trying to skirt any accountability or responsibility for whatever campaign you put together. They choose it and it doesn't go the way everybody wanted it to. They can blame you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is research shows when people are integrated and collaborative and part of the process from start to finish, when it finally comes down to make the decision, they're so fully in that every ounce of energy and diligence they have goes into making that program work. As opposed to, I really wasn't into it. They told us to do it. Yeah, we'll try it. And they give it a half-ass effort and it doesn't succeed. And then they blame everybody else. But if you
Yeah.
involve them from the get-go, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, I've been on the other side. There were
Mhm.
times we brought in agencies, consultants, and when I was on creative or when I was on strategy, and it was always like, wait, does that mean I'm not doing a good job? Does that mean, and it was discomfort for me on the brand side. And anytime someone came in and said, I'm not trying to do your job, I want to be part of your team and I want to be part of building it together. And I just want to help you see differently.
Mhm.
I think that that always made me more comfortable on the brand side and probably then seeped into how I do my work now it can feel very jarring to have someone come in that's not part of the core and perception can sometimes be cemented
Mhm.
as reality that they're there to take over or to change what you're doing or because you screwed it up or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And so then you're not totally bought in. And I think you're right between the choice and then the building the relationship of building the choices together. I do really think that makes an impact in how the work comes to life because you're right. You're invested. You want it to succeed because you were part of it. Where maybe if you weren't part of it, you might root for it not to succeed. I don't know.
Well, that's okay. That's a whole other diabolical way of looking at it, right? Right. But if the choice was made to not pick my idea, then I don't want it to work. Then you're not involved in the right company, and the company has the wrong people on board. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But
Amen.
one thing I wanted to tap into because I think is a really good that you kind of line you went down, the perspective that you have on the brand right now. As an
Yeah.
insider, I think our brand's amazing. As an outsider, like I don't know if your brand's all that good,
Yeah.
right? But together you look at it from, okay, tell me about your perspective so I get an understanding of it. Let me tell you what we see from the outside third eye perspective. This is what we see. Somewhere in the middle is probably the reality, closer to what we're doing because you guys are so entrenched. But let's take a look at this from a different perspective. And when you come at it from that way, Christine, it sounds like you do an amazing job at this. That's how you build that trust. That's how you build that collaborative approach to making the relationship work because it's not coming from a place of finger pointing you're doing anything
Yeah.
wrong. It is that discovery. It is, let me tell you what I see. You tell me what you see, and somewhere in the middle, we're going to come up with this amazing plan. But at first, we have to go through our discovery or our history and figure out what is going on and how do we want to change it. Like, what's the main focus here? So that
Yeah.
it's an interesting, not to bring up perspective, but it is an interesting perspective because not one perspective is always 100% accurate,
Yeah.
right? So you have to take a look at it from different angles.
Yeah.
You've been on both sides of the table, which is a unique perspective for you, I would imagine, to position yourself as I'm an expert in
Yeah.
the arrangement. I might
Yeah.
not be an expert in your business, but I'm an expert in the arrangement because I know both sides of the table. Let me
Yeah.
explain this to you. When you're thinking about your business and these different arrangements, for lack of a better word, how would you describe the challenges that you face to bring yourself from, oh my God, I just got let go to now I've run this agency for a year now. How did you get here? What's the biggest challenge?
Oh, I think other than thinking I was gonna like get the gold watch or whatever, I think I'm a genuinely very optimistic and positive person, so I don't dwell in negativity for very long. So I think that's part of it. I mean, just
Yeah.
innately, I'm just a positive person. I think the other piece was it was kind of like grief. I needed some time to just like sleep in, do non-corporate things for a minute. Um, and then honestly, I was kind of beating my head against a wall looking at jobs that I just was like, yeah, I can do this, but like, how will I just do
Mhm.
this and not see the full picture? And I think that was really hard for me to digest, like, oh. And so the more and more I thought about it, it's just like, okay, well. That took like not very long. I will say. Although
Okay.
it was a holiday, so I did enjoy having Thanksgiving without having to think about Black Friday and things like that.
Well,
I
different
won't
spin.
I won't lie. Which I had been, in retail thinking about Black Friday for 2 decades and spending Thanksgiving posting social posts, things that like you
Yeah.
just when you don't have to do them, it's like, oh my God, this is kind of great.
Life is so much different when I'm not a
Yeah.
slave to my own phone or whatever. You
Right,
know,
but that gave me some clarity to really feel like that the challenge wasn't insurmountable. I just had to approach it from a different direction
yeah.
than I was traditionally thinking about.
Well, that's good. That's good advice too, because this too shall pass, right?
Right.
It's part of the process. One
Yep.
thing, and again, I'm not trying to keep bringing up Simon Sinek, but what you made a really good point is there's tons of jobs out there. I'm looking at the job description. I could totally do that, but why would I want to do that,
Yeah.
right? And you really get into what Simon talks about, really in a strong way. What's the why behind what you're doing?
Yeah.
People don't buy what you say, they don't buy what you do, they don't buy what you make, they buy why you do it. So
Right.
when you position yourself as the why person, like what is the why behind what you do? Explain it to somebody. They're much more inclined to come on board and work with you when they figure out why you do what you do. You
Yeah.
can have the most amazing car, you can have the most amazing product, you have the most amazing services, whatever. But if you don't explain to people why you do what you do, it's hard for people to latch onto it and say,
Yeah.
that's the person I want to work with. And
Yeah.
that kind of weaves itself into the branding because you want, as a brand, people to understand the why behind what you do. Um, like, not that I need to know, but I'm curious. Your thoughts on the Cracker Barrel rebranding?
Oh, so I love this one. First of all, like everyone does a brand refresh.
Yeah,
So I thought it was really interesting. They were like, "Hey, we're just giving ourselves a little dust off. Like,
yeah,
let's just give it a dust off." I think the sad part of the whole thing is they went after this idea of like modern clean as
mhm,
their brand identity, and they couldn't be more the opposite. And
yeah,
it didn't mean that the old man in the barrel had to be in the new logo, but I think
right,
given the environment we're in, it's like, how are you protecting the heritage of who you are? And I think, having worked in a heritage brand, having worked with heritage clients, I think that's a really hard
yeah,
balance to strike, if I'm honest. I think it's one of the most challenging things because you don't want to fire your current customer. Like,
yeah.
period, full stop. Like you can't fire the people who love you today, but it doesn't mean you don't have aspirations to reach new people.
Mhm.
But I think you also have to understand at the core who's a Cracker Barrel customer and who's a potential Cracker Barrel customer. And
Mhm.
there's probably not a ton of people out there who don't have awareness of Cracker Barrel. They're on every like so like what problem are you trying to solve? And if it was just to like freshen yourself up and put on some lipstick and get out for the day, like maybe you went a step too far. Um, I did think it was kind of strange how quickly they just were like,
They
okay,
came right back.
we
Yeah.
just won't do it.
Well,
And like being in a corporate environment, that just feels like the turn the light switch on and off feels like, oh wow, like you could do it that quickly. That felt surprising.
and I echo that. And what I would say is if they were able to make that move and return so quickly, why didn't they spend the time to actually investigate and do
Hmm.
the history part that you and I were just talking about, right? And really
Yeah.
understand who is our core customer and why. Let's not do anything to upset them, but how can we make them more excited about coming here?
Yeah.
Right? And it just I wouldn't say it lost its mark. The logo's not bad, but the
Oh,
way that they went about it, and it's almost as if they spat in the face of the customers by saying, "We don't really care about you. This is our brand new way." Like, wait a minute, I kind of like the tea game. I kind of like sitting around and
yeah. I like that thing.
right, and all of a sudden it's this brand new hip place. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's not it. So as we go through discover, questioning, strategy, and execution, I'm just kind of wow, if they would have spent a little bit more time in discovery and questioning, maybe they would have avoided it. And
Right.
I'm not trying to poke fun at them or anything. I just think it's a really interesting case study for somebody
Yeah.
that does brand strategy. So I appreciate your commentary on it because it was somewhat of a polarizing issue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about like Bath and Body Works has been around for 35 years. And I
Mm,
think in my time with the company, we did about like three restage, revamp moments. Some of them were product based, some of them were brand based. That was probably the
yeah,
biggest one was brand based towards the end. But every time we did it, oh my God, the months we would spend with like customer data. And we never just roll something out. At the end of the day, there are going to be things that are polarizing to people regardless. They don't like that color pink. They're not sure about the girl's face in the model. Like, oh,
yeah.
she's too skinny. Like, whatever. There
Oh
are always
yeah.
things. But there's also this idea of like, you have to serve options. Like, we would do customer walkthroughs and say,
Hmm.
hey, we're either going to go this way or this way. Like, give us your thoughts. And, again, discovery is such a core foundation of it. And whether it takes 5 minutes or 5 months, like, you've got to
Okay.
do
Yeah.
a little work to make sure you're not just going to be like, okay, peace out, customer. Like, we don't really care about you because you could alienate people that you've built 30 plus years
Yeah.
trying to bring in, and it doesn't mean they're not important. They're the ones that have been spending money with you for 30 years. It just means there are other people you want to bring in. That's okay. But you have to acknowledge that that's part of
Right.
what you're doing also.
Well, no comp the easiest way to grow a company is to get your current customers to buy more from you. That's the easiest, most least expensive way to do it, right?
Right.
So with that mindset, why would you go ahead and piss that group of people off to go do something
Exactly.
new, right?
Exactly.
So
Right.
what astonishes me because of all the work we've done bringing new products to market or changing a product to a different level, right? The
Yeah.
amount of VOC work, voice of customer work we
Yeah.
did leading up to it, it was all in that discovery and questioning part of it, where all we did was get people in a room and say, here, tell us your worst, tell us your best, and let us hear it. We're on the
Yeah.
other side of a one-way mirror, just hoping to God they say nice things about it, right?
Yeah.
But what was nice about it, and I think this is part of what we've been talking about, the collaboration and the trust, you have to trust the process to bring out the best result. And the process isn't going to be pretty all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to go into those areas of, oh, God, this is the lion's den. I don't know what's going to happen. And you, oh, wow, okay. They told us 10 things, seven of them, good. Three things we can learn from. Now we're going to make an adjustment. Now we're ready with a better thing. Let's do it again to see if this actually worked. Right.
Right.
So it's all about a learning process, and I'm just going down a limb and say I don't know if Cracker Barrel
Ask
necessarily went through the
anyone.
process. I don't think they went through the process to ask the questions.
Yeah, they probably didn't ask anyone. And at the end of the day, maybe they did and they were just like, ah, screw it, we're going to do it anyway. But if they did, then they wouldn't have switched the switch so
Switch the back
quickly
to back.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, anyway, I love this conversation. So when we're talking about your corporate environment and your firm that you run, what's the one business lesson that you've learned on either side of the table
Oh, yeah.
that you think would be, God, that's the one lesson I think people really need to learn as a
Ooh.
business owner?
Okay, well, I have two actually,
Oh,
probably. It's
you're an
just
overachiever. We'll take both.
or I was gonna say the Libra and me who can't decide which one. I think there's two things. One is, from a how I do what I do and why I do what I do. I've always been a leader doer. Okay, so leader doer. I think you got to be able to see both the forest and the trees. You've got to be able to lead with a big picture vision and see, more broadly the big picture of how you're trying to do something, but you've got to also understand how it gets done to be able to solve the problems. And I think, I have been fortunate to work in a corporate environment where I had big teams, but I also had a lot of small teams. At one point, I scaled my team from 2 people to 22 people. And so you got to be able to see how the work gets done to solve some of the problems. And I think it's really
Mhm.
important that you never lose the ability to roll up your sleeves and get into how to fix things without losing sight of the bigger picture. So see
I
the
like
forest
that.
and
No, it's a good way to look at it. And I've always made the comment, I think our job as coaches, consultants, whatever, when we come in, there's a lot of people that we work with that don't necessarily see the forest through the trees, or they're so fixated on this one tree that they don't see what's around them. So I always make the comment, I'm either the guy showing up with a chainsaw or a packet of seeds. I'm either going to plant more trees so you can see what's possible, or
yeah,
I'm going to cut trees down so you can see a clear view. Either way, you've got to see the forest through the trees. And as a leader that's involved as building the strategy, if you don't understand how to get to the end result, you can't be a successful leader because you're probably going to ask people to do things they're not ready for or capable of doing in a time frame and manner you expect. So you got to get to know how things work. So I appreciate that.
exactly.
It-
Exactly. I think
you
the
said
other
you had two. You said you had two.
I
Yeah.
do. I think the other piece is, corporate really taught me about structure and and sometimes not a structure, so you had to figure it out, but figuring out structure, how to run a meeting,
Mm,
how to build an effective presentation, how to present to a CEO, all of those things that are sort
mhm.
of things that scare people. I think structure sometimes scares people, but it's really empowering because if you just have those like fundamental things like, hey, here's how I can build you a campaign launch plan with my eyes closed. I can build you a marketing calendar with my eyes closed. Like, those are really simple structural things. And I can run a meeting. I can do all those things. I think I told you when we first met, like, I really appreciated a good facilitator. That's maybe the nerdiest corporate thing I've ever said, but I do think there's, a lot of, sorry, my dog is rolling around back here.
You're good.
A lot of really powerful um, core competencies and structures that I learned
Mhm.
in the corporate world that I am very grateful for that I apply today because it makes it really easy for me to do things that might feel insurmountable to other people
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, let's just do that. Here it is.
Right.
How to
And
do it.
what I think is interesting is coming from the corporate space, there is a tremendous amount of structure, but it's built on professionalism, and this is how you do it. Right? You start to finish. Like interesting enough, the one that you made comment to, I really like how to run a meeting.
Yeah,
It seems so simple, but
it
when
does.
you're somebody that's started their own business or you're a small business, you don't know because you've never been in the environment where this is how
Yeah.
you do things, right? And
Yeah.
it's not to say that one side of the equation is better than the other. That's not
No.
what we're saying. What we're saying is, and I appreciate your thought process, the things you've learned is be a leader doer, okay, a servant leader to a certain degree. That's what you're making comment to. And then the second one is use the structure and experience that you have to be better at the job you currently have. Because there's no reason to jettison all the things you've learned in your corporate world. Apply them in such a way that you can make yourself better as a standalone business because you know how to do things the right way. I want to say, Chrissy, thank you for all this. It's been amazing insight and very comfortable conversation. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I typically ask one last question. So I'm going to put you into a time machine and send you back, and you get a chance to meet 18-year-old Chrissy.
Oh gosh.
You two sit on a park bench. What's that conversation sound like?
Oh, other than making myself feel really old sitting with 18-year-old Chrissy, um, you know, honestly, I think I'm not that dissimilar. Maybe that's bad. But I also think I probably would just tell her to be more open and to be more adventurous.
Okay.
Um, you know, I grew up in a very small town. I went to college and I did some work in corporate, but then I went straight in out of college into my first job. And like I said, throughout all of this, I learned so much
Sure.
in that job. But I also think maybe spending 18 years there,
Mhm.
I spent, if I'm 18-year-old Chrissy, I spent my entire life in that job, right? And I think having the openness to say, maybe this isn't right, maybe I should try something new. I could have fought for myself a little bit more in
Yeah.
those 18 years, and I probably just needed the courage to do that.
I like that. And I'm just going to echo that. Um, After 20 years with the same organization, you would think, oh, the gold watch, the pen,
Yeah.
everything's coming, it's going to be great. And never once did you think, what's best for me? And I
Yeah.
like the idea of if I would go back, I would tell myself, pay attention to what's good for you
Yeah.
and pursue that. Don't pursue anything else. So I want to thank you for that. There's great commentary. Um, all things considered, great message, great interview. And what's your dog's name?
This
What
is
is
Daphne Moon.
Daphne Moon, of course. Okay.
Can you say hi?
I love it. Chrissy, thank you so much for being a part of the program. I want to thank you for everything you had to say. And any final words?
Thank you for having me and keep seeing the forest and the trees.
I love it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.